Hello, warrior. So I recently posted a quote of mine that said, "You're not intimidating, they're intimidated." And that got a lot of response across my platforms. So I wanted to post a video talking about what you do when someone says you're intimidating and you, upon reflection, aren't. And so it's a subtle distinction of language, but it has a big difference. And when I'm talking about intimidating versus intimidated, intimidating is the intentional act of scaring someone to bring about a response or a consequence. If you don't do this, you're going to be fired, for example. And being intimidated is the feeling that someone has in your presence. Now, while this distinction does apply to men, sometimes it impacts women, especially women of color, and a lot of times it's code for play smaller. It's code for you're making someone feel small even if you're not trying to. So I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna sip a little bit of tea on this one because this one seems to have gotten ruffled some feathers, or gotten under some people's skin because they're experiencing this. So I don't mind. This is my Han Solo Star Wars mug. I'm a Star Wars fan. Anyway, so what can you do when someone says to you or you receive the feedback that you're intimidating and in you don't feel that you are? So the number one thing to do is take a deep breath, sip your tea, and do not go on the defensive. Ask for information. Ask for specific examples of when, where, and how you were intimidating someone else. And be clear and ask the question, how was I scaring someone? How was I intentionally scaring someone to bring about a response? Because that is the act of intimidating another person. And if they can't give you examples, or if they do give you examples, take a time to reflect on that. So that's number two. If you take time to reflect on the examples that they've given you to see if there is some validity in there. Now, intimidation might not be the right word. Okay, so maybe you're speaking over someone. Maybe the examples they give you are you have a really loud voice. I have a really loud voice and I'm not yelling, but my voice carries. It just does. And I don't have to really work hard to be heard across a distance. And I know there's quite a few people out there, but yeah, so maybe it's that. I was once given feedback that I should speak in a higher pitch. And I think the word that they used was that my voice is too heavy. So when I'm in a debate with someone, or if we're kind of going back and forth and having discussion, my voice is so heavy and it seems so serious, and the other person feels as if I am trying to intimidate them or make them see things my way. So number three is, once you've reflected and if there is some validity in that feedback, do what you can. I was not going to change the pitch of my voice. I physically cannot do that. But I was mindful of how the tone of my voice, the volume of my voice. I speak a lot with my hands, and so I tried not to do that while I was talking with someone, sort of one on one or face to face with someone else. So do what you can, incorporate the feedback that you can, but you have to be very crystal clear on the feedback. So you really, number one is going to be important in pulling back the layers of that. Number four is, if you know where that feedback came from, because sometimes it might have been back channeled to you because your manager might not feel that way, but it might have shown up in a 360, or it might have shown up in some other channel. A lot of times when I got this feedback, it was back channeled to me from my manager. My manager, frankly, had no idea where it was coming from. But if you do know where it's coming from and you can sit down and address with that person, please do. A lot of times these things come from miscommunication, and they come from not really being able to come together and just have a conversation. A lot of people don't have that ability to sort of manage through conflict and move through conflict, and just say, hey, I would really love it if you can give me an example or two. Go for two, because one is a one-off, two is you start to take notice, three is a pattern. So go for two or three examples of when this person felt a certain way. Listen, and also find out, how would that experience have been better for you? Ask the question, how could that experience have been different for you? How could it have been better for you? Now, you can't change everything. Like I said, I wasn't going to change the pitch of my voice. Maybe you can change some of the things that they talked about, maybe not. Maybe just in the act of having the conversation and adjusting it will work. Number 5, the 5th thing that you can do is lean into it. And here's the thing. The story that I related when I posted this is, early in my career, there was an executive, high level executive, who I, would cross paths with, but I would hide from him. And this was my own internal thing. I would hide from him. He never said anything to me. He never did anything to me. He was largely regarded as a great leader. And I was literally ducking into side hallways or conference rooms if I saw him coming down the hall. Now, for whatever the reason, I thought I was hiding this, but my manager realized it and asked me point blank, what am I doing? And when I said, I'm intimidated, he's intimidating. And my manager, who was a great leader, sat me down and walked me through it. And I realized that it was all about my level of confidence. It all went back to my level of imposter syndrome. And I posted a video about imposter syndrome, but that's really where it came from. This man did nothing to me. He said nothing to me. He was just a powerful figure, and he had a powerful presence. And my manager put us both in the room, and I realized this is a nice guy. He's a great leader. I actually ended up working for him probably a year and a half later. So it was all me. I had to rise to meet him. He met me where I was, but I had to rise. And here's the thing, you're going to have to lean into it, because the people who are meant to be in your orbit, they will rise to meet you. Those other ones will float on by. And what you need to do as the more powerful person, the person with the greater power has the greater responsibility. Let me say that again. The person with the greater power has the greater responsibility. And I'm not talking about power that comes with title. I'm talking about that power of presence, that power of expertise, because you need to meet people where they are and help them get up to where they should be or need to be or want to be, or where you would like to see them. And even if that person who's intimidated is above you, you still have to lean into it. You will eventually find your tribe. You will eventually find a group or an environment, or you will create one where what you're doing is acceptable and is expected. It is expected for you to perform. Is expected of you to be operate at a higher level. If it's just one person, grin and bear it, lean into it, because you have the greater responsibility, because they are mentally ducking into side hallways. They are mentally ducking into conference rooms when you come around, regardless of you doing anything to them. And unfortunately, you just have to lean into that and sort of help make them feel as comfortable as possible without giving up who you are, without giving up too much of your personal power, because that's your gift. Your personal power and your presence is your gift, and that's what's going to excel and accelerate you. And understand this, the higher you go, the more people who will be intimidated by you. I'm quite sure I wasn't the only person to be intimidated by this high level executive, but I rose to the challenge, and I ended up, again, working directly for him. So, that is, you just have to, like I said, lean in. You have the greater responsibility. It's not fun, but that is what it is. So sip your tea, take a deep breath. and keep it moving.